I've watched the United States become deeply divided in recent years, but I am a bit shocked at how utterly divided Canada emerged after the recent national election. Canada does have a history of strong secessionist movements. In the aftermath of this election, talk of secession has come rushing back to the forefront. Scott Moe is the Premier of Saskatchewan. He just published an open letter to Justin Trudeau. He says the people of his province are more frustrated and alienated than at any point in his lifetime. He calls for both Alberta and Saskatchewan to receive a new deal from the Canadian federal government. He calls on Justin Trudeau to cancel the federal carbon tax, negotiate a new formula for equalization payouts, and allow new pipelines to be built. At the heart of this divide is the fact that vast amounts of federal tax revenue are taken from Alberta and Saskatchewan and used to subsidize the rest of Canada instead of being spent locally. Alberta and Saskatchewan voted overwhelmingly for the Conservative Party. Out of a combined 48 seats, the Conservative Party won 47, and Trudeau's Liberal Party won 0. Nationally, Conservatives got 34.4% of the vote, and Liberals got 31.1%. However, when it comes to seats, Trudeau's Liberal Party will get 46.5% of the seats, and the Conservatives will only get 35.8% of the seats, even though they received 250,000 more votes. To understand how this happened, take a look at these maps. The Toronto metro area gets more seats than Alberta and Saskatchewan put together. The Liberal Party won most of these seats. If we compare the Canadian Parliament to the U.S. House of Representatives, Toronto would be California and New York City. The left-wing Liberal and New Democratic parties both took sizable hits at the polls. However, because of the massive number of seats in Toronto, it appears that substitute schoolteacher and costume aficionado Justin Trudeau will return to power. The big victor of the election was regional party Bloc Québécois, which made a huge comeback. A big chunk of the seats lost by the Liberal and New Democratic parties went to Bloc Québécois. Now, this is not a conservative party. It is basically center-left, but with a lot of caveats. In 1995, the people of Quebec nearly voted to secede from Canada in a public referendum. The referendum failed 56.6% to 49.4%, even though the polls had been predicting it would pass for weeks. It had the highest voter turnout in Quebec history, with 93% of eligible voters participating, and lost by only 46,000 votes. Now, there were some serious shenanigans. Millions of federal tax dollars were spent fighting the referendum. Over 86,000 votes were rejected, more than the margin of victory. People were charged with fraud, but no one was ever convicted. However, the main reason that the referendum lost was the weaponizing of the immigrant population to stop it. The core strategy of the No campaign was to use fear-mongering and hysteria to scare the immigrant population into voting no. In fact, the Canadian immigration minister, Liberal Party member Sergio Marchi, flooded Quebec with citizenship judges ahead of the election. Over 40,000 immigrants were fast-tracked to full citizenship so they could vote in the referendum. Marchi even openly admitted he was creating new voters for the election. There are two key things that the left uses to undermine democracy: welfare and immigration. Welfare is used to buy votes, and immigration is used to create new voters for their policies. The 1995 referendum in Quebec is a textbook example of immigration being used to explicitly undermine the democratic process. Then, anyone in Quebec who spoke out about this was simply denounced as a racist. Currently, Quebec's parliament is dominated by the center-right Coalition for Quebec's Future. This coalition does not advocate full independence, but does advocate for the protection of Quebec's unique French-Canadian culture and has clashed with Trudeau over immigration. The success of Bloc Québécois appears to be the result of the policies of its new leader, Yves-François Blanchet. He only became the leader last January. He seems to have moved the party back to its center-right roots and campaigned on lowering immigration and reducing taxes. Under his leadership, the party made huge gains. These gains came mainly at the expense of the Liberal and New Democracy parties. While the Québécois do not seem to view secession as a viable political option anymore, social media has exploded with talk of the possible secession of Alberta. Alberta is another region with a long-standing secessionist movement. However, there has never been a referendum. Talk of hashtag Wexit and Ottawa doesn't care are all over the internet. The Canadian left appears to be getting a bit worried. With Trudeau poised to return, many think an actual referendum in Alberta would win. Many are wondering aloud what would actually happen if the economic powerhouse Alberta seceded and the Canadian government lost its cash cow. Another big question is, how much of the rest of Western Canada would Alberta be able to take with it? Brian Pallister, the Premier of Manitoba, publicly denounced secession yesterday and said he supports the carbon tax. However, Manitoba was divided, with Conservatives winning 7 seats and the left-wing parties winning 7 seats. Is it possible that at some point in the future we will see an independent Western Canada, an independent French-speaking Quebec, and a third country dominated by Toronto? Personally, I think it would be very exciting to see the creation of a new country in North America. Compared to the entire rest of the world, the Western Hemisphere has been extremely stable as far as borders are concerned for a very long time. We will have to wait and see what happens. Alright, thanks for watching this video. Click the like button, post a comment below, and tell me what you think about this. And please consider making a donation to this YouTube channel, as YouTube has mass demonetized all my videos. And I would like to thank Kevin, Theo, Andres, and Christopher for making donations. And please support my sponsor, Patriotic Flags, the online flag store, Patriotic-Flags. Get yourself an Alberta flag. And click the subscribe button. New video every few days.